Coming up, I build a ginormous real-life library that will be used to super enchant my tools and equipment. I also do some more work on the grounds of my hotel, and I even create my very own mod. Let's create. Impossible books! That's what we're going to be making today in a brand new library because we've got everything we need. And that's because in the last episode I made a glow squid farm down there underground. Let's go to it. But as usual, there's a problem. There's always a problem. And the problem is these shipping containers. If you remember from the last episode, my glow squid farm minces up the glow squid and all of their glow squid ink sacs went into one of these shipping containers. And when I left the server last night, there was about 3,500 in there. But unfortunately, when I logged on this morning, it was completely empty. And there's something else a little bit strange about these as well. You see, these containers are made from an item vault and some dye, or a barrel with some iron sheet and some dye. And a barrel with iron sheet is the same recipe as an item vault. So you'd expect each one of these to hold as many items as a barrel. However, let's put one of those there and one of those there. That's a normal vault. That's a shipping container one. Let's throw a stack of items into there and a stack of items into there. No problem, sir. They've all gone in. Let's throw a threshold switch on now and we'll see that that one's nowhere near full. And we'll throw one on there and we'll see that that's completely full. For some reason, they'll only hold one stack of items per block, which is very strange. And I'm wondering if that's the reason why, for some reason, all of my glow ink sacks went missing overnight. Now, the server does restart every day just to make sure everything's running nicely, and no, there's no one else on here that could have stolen them, so clearly something weird's going on. But anyway, I've replaced it now with these storage drawers, and as you can see, we've got 26,500 of them in there, and that's because I've done a lot of AFK. To be fair, that's only actually been around about 4 or 5 hours, so that just goes to show you how powerful this crazy glow squid farm is. And I got a couple of comments in the last video asking why I built a glow squid farm. What did I do that for? Well, I need these glow squid ink sacs to make hyper experience. You see, liquid hyper experience is what I need to teach blaze burners how to read. Well, that's not exactly true. I can teach them how to read books without the hyper experience. However, if I feed one some hyper experience, it will actually be able to enchant items with enchantment levels higher than the book I've given it. So that means if I give it an Unbreaking 3 book and I fill it full of hyper experience, it'll enchant items with Unbreaking 4. So of course, if we're going to be doing hyper enchanting and enchanted books and things like that, we're going to need villagers. And I've already got a bunch of those. And we're also going to need somewhere to do all of this. And I'm thinking we're going to be... Oh yeah, this is all different. It's a lot different from last time you saw it. We'll get to that in a minute. Anyway, yes, we're going to need a brand new building today to put them in. And I'm going to be building a library somewhere over here. But before I get to building a library, let's go over all of the things I've done already. Starting with the hotel, I needed more trees, bigger, more luscious trees to help it set into the environment more. So I hopped over the mountain and grabbed a few schematics of some of the large tree variants available from world generation that aren't growable from saplings. And while hopping over the mountain, I found my bees. As the comment suggested, all of my lost bees had indeed flown off to the northwest as per that lovely bug that makes them do that. Back at the hotel, using a bunch of schematic cannons rather than just one, I shaped the trees around the side of the hotel as well as extending the front wall, adding in a fence and a few shorter spruce trees and a bit of grass to make the thicket feel a little bit more dense. And once I was happy with that, I threw down some zinc lamps along the higher ledges of the hotel that I'd seen mobs spawning on previously, as well as a bunch of lanterns along the fence next to the petrol station. I need to make the area around the hotel as light as possible to prevent mob spawning while I'm AFK above the mob farm, so I decided to tackle the road next. Disguising some of the white lines as frame blocks with glowstone to make them emit light did prevent the road being spawnable. However, it didn't feel particularly natural having a glowing road without any streetlights. So I designed some street lamps with a few frame blocks and then used the schematic cannon to place a bunch of them along all of the sections of road. With those in place and textured, I continued the gravel and dirt and grass section along the sides of the newest parts of the road and then extended the platform so I could work on the other side of the hotel. First, I dug out an area for the car park, brought up the tarmac from the road to fill it in, and then added a new wall and parking space lines with frame blocks. Again, I added a bunch of new trees to this side of the hotel, and then I grabbed a new schematic of a whole group of trees to fill in the area behind the car park to make both sides of the hotel feel a lot more finished and full. Again, I planted a few smaller spruce trees in the gaps under the larger trees and threw some bone meal onto the grass below, which brings us to now. So now you're all up to speed, I think you'll all agree that my hotel looks a whole bunch nicer and a lot more settled into this area with all these trees around it. At least I hope you all agree about that. Now there are still a few things that I need to do around here. I still haven't done absolutely anything with the back area here at all, and that's because I'm not really 100% sure what to do here. I was kind of thinking swimming pool maybe, but I also thought that just filling it up with trees might look quite nice as well, and it would sort of bring it into this area here. The other thing I haven't done with this building is added any form of interior. Not that there's much room to put an interior in, but I think I'd quite like to have something going on in these corner areas here. The other thing about this hotel is its name. I've had a couple of comments now saying that I should call this the Hotel California in reference to the Eagles song about a hotel that's called the Hotel California, but I'm not sure it should be called that. You see, the song lyrics for that song say that you can check out anytime you like, but you can never leave, and I don't know if you've noticed, but there's big holes in the wall here. I can leave out of this quite easily. It also says there's mirrors on the ceiling and pink champagne on ice, and I don't see any mirrors on the ceiling, and I'm certainly not seeing any champagne. So perhaps the Hotel California is maybe not the most apt name for this building, but I understand the reference. I understand it's to do with monsters, i.e. mobs, but I'm not convinced. So let me know in the comments what you think the name of this hotel should be, and I might just pick it. Anyway, that's enough talking about hotels. So surely that means we can get on with this hyper enchanting and building the library, right? No. You see, the problem is I'm going to need a whole bunch of leather if we're building a library to make a whole bunch of bookcases. And as much as I've got a leather farm, kind of sort of maybe a bit, I've only got 716 of it. Now these hyper mega blaze burners can't actually enchant books. They can only enchant items like weapons and armor. So I'm not going to need books to be enchanted, but of course I'm going to need a whole bunch of them to make bookcases. But I've got a plan. In fact, I've got a brand new data pack that I created this morning. And speaking of data packs, if you saw my video a little while ago about the chipped mod data pack that allows you to craft all of the chipped mod blocks using create mechanical saws, that's now available for free on my Discord, so check that out. And so is this one as well. And this new data pack is for all of these backpacks. You see, these backpacks are still just piling up. I got a whole bunch of them and nothing to do with them, and I've gone to the effort of taking all of the unique ones out and putting them on this wall here, so I've got at least one of every single type, and the standard backpack, which are these basically plain ones here, can now be thrown through crushing wheels. So if I hop up here and throw that down there and let that go into the crushing wheel, you'll see it'll get crushed and recycled into all of its components, and one of those components is leather. The problem is though, it don't work with these ones. So you see I've got this gold traveler's backpack here, and if I throw that in there, that'll go down through the crushing wheels and give me absolutely nothing in return. That was a bit of a waste, but don't worry peeps, because I've got a plan for that too. And this isn't part of my data pack, this is just part of Create, or the Traveler's Backpack mod, I'm not sure which one it's part of. But basically, if I throw down a mixing bowl somewhere where I can get power to it, throw a mixer on top, a cog there, and a vertical gearbox and get that going, if I throw in one of these backpacks and then throw a set of shears in there as well, that'll actually mix it all up and it will give me a standard backpack instead. It basically undoes whatever it's got on it and gives you that, and you get the shares back too, which is very nice. So if I was just to move all of this round a little bit so we've got some room under there, I could maybe put a conveyor belt from over here, see if we can get all of that connected to a bit of power. We can, good. And we can pop a funnel on there, and we'll stick a brass funnel on there with a standard traveler's backpack filter on there, and we can just extend this belt down this way a little bit and throw that on there, and then all of the backpacks can come through and they can all get mixed up, and hopefully they're all coming out into here as the standard ones. That's amazing. So we'll get one of those there, and we'll get one of those there, and we'll remove this chest for a minute. And that, and we'll put that there, and we'll put that there, and we'll extend this belt a little bit like this, and then we'll put another piece of shaft there like that, and then we'll put that chest there instead with one of those in there, and then everything can go on the floor instead of in the chest. Oh geez, no, I didn't. And then I can throw all of these ones down here that have already come through. Here we go. Lovely. And now I'm fully automating recycling these backpacks into all of these amazing materials. That's wonderful. Excellent. And now we can send off the next wave of those. They can all come through and get mixed. How are my shears doing? I don't even think the shears are losing durability, so that's good. And there we go. We're generating a whole bunch of items. And if you're wondering why it gives you wool and iron and gold and glass, that's because the standard traveler's backpack takes 4 leather, gold, a sleeping bag, which is wool, and these backpack tanks, which is iron and glass. But it doesn't give you everything back. It just gives you a small amount of each one. And I think that's fair. All my backpacks have gone. This is good news. And check this out. I got so much from that. I can't believe just that. Well, it was like 6 double-chested backpacks. But yeah, look at all this leather and iron and wool and gold. This is amazing. You're cheating. It's not cheating. It's recycling, mate. I've got the Create Recycle add-on, but it don't work with Traveller's backpacks, so I had to make my own. Cheating. It's not cheating. I'd have used all those materials to create those backpacks, but you got them for free. No, stop it. And there we go. So now that that's done, we can... Hang on a minute. What? I've been thinking. Oh, no. This Hotel California. It's not the Hotel California. Yeah, but listen, right? The spiders on the ceiling, the creepers aren't so nice. The mobs are all just prisoners here of their own device. And in the massive basement, the mobs are all released. And they get crushed by the crushing wheels and give nuggets of XP. Well, that's the idea. Look, I've just lost my train of thought now. What was I doing? The last thing I remember, you were running for the door. You were going to build that library that you talked about before. Well, just stop it. Relax, Mr. Foxman. We're programmed to receive. Who is? The mobs can despawn anytime they like, but they can never leave. Stop it, that's enough! Okay, yeah, I guess with those lyrics, this is a little bit like the hotel, but it's not those lyrics, it's not just right. Okay, now, comments, what do you think? Oh, jeez, stupid random voice that just talks to me for no reason. Anyway, now we got leather, and a lot of silliness, apparently. It's time to make a library, and I'm building it here. Well, I've no idea what the design's going to be. I've no idea how I'm going to do it, but I am. I'm going to do it, and I'm going to start now. So this library then, as you can see, I've made a start and it looks kind of strange, and that's because I'm trying to make this building, which is the public library in Stuttgart, Germany, and I've tried to downscale it a bit because the actual scale of the real building is massive. In fact, if I was to do it real scale, this building would need to be 83 blocks long, which is about 5 chunks by 5 chunks, and then another like 5 chunks worth high, and that's ridiculous. But basically what I've got is not right, so I need to tear all of that out, and I thought, instead of doing a montage, we'll talk our way through it. But before I can do anything else, I need to smash everything to bits. Again. What do you mean again? Yeah, I already done all this once and deleted it, and now I'm doing it again and deleting it. I think each floor should be 5 blocks tall, and if each floor is 5 blocks tall, then each one of these window bits needs to be 5 blocks long. And then it's got glass all the way around there like that, but that hole in the middle is now way too big. So what I'm going to do is use a bunch of framed blocks. But the windows also have like a white frame on the inside as well. That all being said, when I watched a video about this building, these windows were actually really thin. They weren't full blocks like this at all. Realistically, if I was doing it exactly like this building was, all of the windows should be this thin. The only problem now is this hole in here is way too small. It needs to be half of these again. And I can't really do thin framed blocks. So I think I'm going to have to do the windows a full block width just so that I can get the shape right. But that's fine. It doesn't have to be exact. It can be exactly how I want it. That sort of width at the sides, and then that hole in the front looks about the right size, but now this bit's too big. The original picture, that's a lot thinner than the sides, but if we go up another layer, it doesn't quite look right. So perhaps the floors should only be 4 blocks high instead of 5 blocks high, but will that give us enough room inside on each floor to have exactly what we need? And it probably will. Now that should look a lot more like the picture, which it does. The only thing the picture has that this doesn't is a white trim on the inside of these. And again, I could use framed blocks to do that. But my little hole in the middle gets too small. That doesn't look too far off, but these white bits look way too thick. And the other thing these windows have got is every single one has a railing going across the front, apart from the actual main entrance. And I was using copycat panels to do that, but obviously they're going to be 1 block wide. Now I could put them on the outside like that instead, but that just looks wrong. Who would have thought a perfectly square building made out of perfect squares would be so hard to replicate in Minecraft? I'd really like it if these white stained glass windows actually had white on the outside rather than the black bits. That's much more what I was looking for. Yes, that actually looks very nice, and that's just a little resource pack I made for myself, just retexturing one block. But then I'd still got to do this gap in the middle. So I've been fiddling around with this a little bit, and this is the closest I can get to for it looking like the real thing in terms of the gap in the middle, the glass being the right width around the outside. But then this is no longer a square, which is very much unlike the real building. I could just keep it as glass and just have that window extra thick at the sides, and then that kind of works. And if that's the case, we don't need these to be framed blocks, they might as well just be glass. And then that means that each one of these windows is now 8 blocks long by 5 blocks tall, which is not really square. But then looking a lot closer at the reference pictures I've got, they're not really square either. Well, I don't think they're quite that rectangular, but that's what we're going to be going for. So let's see how many of these we're going to get along here. Well, keeping the platform the same size as it was before, we're going to get 5 of them. But I was going to do this 3 chunks by 3 chunks, which actually brings us up to here. So we could probably get away with a couple more. That's not too bad. Not too bad at all. This is going to be the front door. So this has a completely different design to the rest. Something a little bit like that. Kind of works for the front door, I think. It looks a little bit spaghetti, but it's fine. Now, the other thing I'm noticing from these reference pictures is the actual building. The bottom of the building here is actually in line with the grass, as you can see from the picture of the front door that I was just looking at. Here we go again. And now everything's down at grass level. We can do the sides of the building, which is basically exactly the same as the front, except they don't have the front door. And I could use the schematic cannon to put these sides in as well, but we'll save it until we've got a whole layer done, and then we'll use that to do the other layers with. And there we go. That's the entire bottom floor external walls done. So now I can use the schematic cannon to make this go up a few floors. Let's grab the old schematic and quill, and we need to go all the way from there all the way over to here. Okay, let's find out exactly what we're going to need to do this. So doing the maths for another 6 floors, I'm going to need 336 andesite bars, 336 copycat panels, 1,680 smooth calcite columns, 168 smooth inlaid calcite, and 3,024 white stained glass things. And I've got nearly all of that, except for calcite. I've only got 1,800 of that, and that's literally all I've got. So let's hop back down our original mine and see if we can find any down any of these tunnels. There we go, look, a whole bunch of the stuff, maybe. I don't know if this is a whole bunch or not, but I'm going to take it. So how much did I get? Oh, quite a lot, which brings my grand total for calcite up to 2,459, which is just about enough. And here we go, the last few blocks are going in place on the very top layer, and I've put a new floor in, and that means that the entire outer shell of this building is still not finished because of the big old section that needs to go at the top, right up there. But we'll worry about that in a minute. And you might be asking, why have I picked this building? Why this one in particular? What has this got to do with hyper experience and enchanting and all that sort of stuff? It's just a big old white building with holes in it. Well, this building kind of comes to life at night when it all turns blue. A little bit like those fancy blue blazes doing their fancy blue enchanting. I don't know how I'm going to make this turn blue at night. I've got some ideas. Anyway, now that the external walls are in, I need to get the roof layer in, and I think I should probably skip ahead a bit because this video's already going on a bit and we haven't even started on the internals, so I'll see you after I've made some progress. Oh, we want to see you build. Oh, jeez. Okay, fine. First, I headed back to the mines to gather up as much calcite as I could find, and using that, I added the final layer to the library and began working on the roof, starting by throwing around a bunch of railings at the edge to mimic the look of the actual building, and then doing my best to try and recreate the roof area, which I didn't really have a lot of reference for. I threw down a ring of industrial iron plating, leaving a large square hole in the middle, which would be for a lighting feature. The problem was I don't really know how big that needs to be, so I put a quick wall around where I thought it might go, and then messed around with some stairs leading down from the roof. Well, I feel like I'm getting somewhere, but it's quite difficult to do the roof of this building because I can't find any decent aerial shots of the building. The video I looked at before does show somebody walking up some stairs, and they come to this railing, and there's a bit of gravel down there, and then they come round here, and then the camera sort of cuts and then they're looking at the side of the building over here, and it's all a bit difficult. What I do know, it's got a big trench around the outside like this, even got some sunbeds up there so you can sunbathe, and in the middle there's this massive big sort of glass design, I guess. So it's sort of surrounded by, I guess, concrete, and then it's got big old glass panels in it, and that matches up with the floors below. So I don't really know what size I need that until we've got the floors in on the inside. One thing I have done now is turned off my dynamic crosshair, which is a little bit unfortunate because I do like that mod, but now I can actually place these industrial iron catwalks. It's no longer conflicting with that, and actually when I break them now I get them back. I've no idea why that mod broke those, but it did. Now none of these windows are visible from the main floors of the building, so we're going to need some sort of walls around about this point here on every single level. Some will have doors in, obviously, to get to the outside little walkways that take you up there, and there's also quite a big entrance hall of the building as well, which I'm not really sure how it all fits in, considering it's a square building all based around its center. So I think we're probably going to ignore that atrium and just go straight on to building this library. Now the really interesting thing about this building is the floors. They all have a different depth, and I don't mean up and down. What I mean is, let's say the bottom floor bookcases around about this level here, the walkway would be a couple of blocks out from that, and then the next floor upstairs, the bookcases would be a little bit further back, and then that one's floor would stick out a little bit, so it kind of staircases up the whole building until you get to the top. And I think I'm going to start from the very top, and this isn't the block I'm using for the floor, but it's easy to place and break for now as temporary blocks, and that's going to be at this level here. So we need enough room to have our walkway around the outside, which in reality is quite thin, so we can probably get away with having that wall there. Then we need enough blocks outside of that to have a few bookshelves, and the stairs do actually stick out to the side of the platform rather than actually being part of the floor, so I guess it would be more like that. So if this floor is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 along, it looks like the next one would come out 2 blocks wider than the stairs that were on that one, and then you'd have the stairs after that one as well, so we'd have stairs here. I have no idea if this is making sense. So the floors would be a little bit like that, but as you might be able to tell, that's going to cause us a bit of a problem because we're not even down to the bottom floor yet, and we've already reached the middle of the room. And although the middle floor has only got a very, very tiny section, it's certainly going to be bigger than that, and that's because this is not to scale with the original building. So I'm going to have to take some artistic liberties here and make it fit. And I think one way I can do that is to make this hallway round the side only 1 block wide, because it isn't anything other than a hallway with some stairs in it, and it does look pretty thin on the video. And watching that video again, these hallways are incredibly thin, but the thing that makes them feel wider is something I've made a big old mistake with, and that's these windows. These windows should 100% be thin panels like that, and then you'd feel like you'd have a bunch more room walking down here. But I'd have to do that for every single window. It's got to be done. Oh, why? How do I put it? Well, maybe it's not going to take so long after all. I'll just replace it all with those. But I'm not going to get my glass back doing that. Let's throw this up to the next one. Throw that in there. Click go. And yeah, no, I'm losing all of my glass doing that. It doesn't matter. I've got infinite glass. If I look in my glass supplies, I've got 2.3 million of it, and it's still coming in thick and fast. So glass isn't going to be a problem. That's better. All of my windows have been replaced, which means, yes, it's cost me a lot of glass. But now I've got 2.4 million glass. So I've been trying to work out these floor levels and still not being overly happy with it. But then it's occurred to me that I didn't check the pictures properly again. So I've watched that video again. And it turns out that the library, even though it's got 10 floors on the outside, there's only 5 floors on the inside. And that might sound a bit odd, but basically the actual floors of the library are all the way from the top. So they basically got 5 floors at the top, and then that big atrium room that's at the bottom, which is basically a big square room, is the bottom floors, and then you take stairs up to it. And that means we can probably make it a whole bunch better. But yeah, that looks a lot more like the actual sizing of the actual building. Well, things are slowly getting there. In fact, I've done a ridiculous amount of work since I last spoke to you, and it's all on the internals and none of it's finished. But as you can see down here, we've got that internal atrium bit, although it's not quite as tall as the one from the reference pictures I've got, but that's because this building's not as tall as the actual building. And it's got the skylight coming from upstairs, it's got a bunch of these graty window things, and if we go this way, we get to a staircase which takes us up to our actual library area. And this is the first floor here. Again, we've got big old spaces around these rooms with absolutely nothing in. And it's going to stay like that for a while because it's going to take me an awful long time to actually decorate this place. But here we go, the actual main event of the library. We've got that bit of the floor which shines light all the way from outside all the way down there. And we've got all of the different floors and all of the different stairs. At the top level, I've put in those things that I saw from the reference picture, and I've done it on both sides for symmetry. And on the other levels, I haven't actually added anything at all. I haven't even added in the internal walls. See, each one of these parts here, there's going to be another wall around, and all of the bookcases and things are going to sit on this side. So from the very top floor, it's quite a nice little view looking down. This ceiling took me absolutely ages to do, as I'm sure you can imagine. And we got all of these fancy little frame block lights around, keeping everything nice and light. And if we go out of this door here and head along this grate, we'll get to our staircase to the roof. And on the roof, well, I didn't really know what to do with the roof. Again, lack of reference material, but we've got the skylight bit in the middle here, and we've got these little grated areas here which I've seen from the pictures often have deck chairs on for things like sunbathing. And that's basically it. And it's taken me an awfully long time. And one of the reasons for that is I needed a handful of blocks which didn't exist. Adding custom blocks to Minecraft Java Edition is quite a tricky thing to do. You can't just throw them in a data pack and have a bunch of new blocks to hand. You really need to make a mod. So I did. For a while now, I've wanted grate blocks. You see how these blocks are grated? I've wanted blocks like that, and they just don't seem to exist in any of the packs that I've got. So I spent a day learning how to make a mod, and I've created a bunch of blocks. We've got andesite grate blocks, industrial iron grate blocks, and iron grate blocks. And they're just made on the stone cutter with a bit of iron ingot. And you can see, actually, in this room, there's a whole bunch of the iron ones just in the walls here, giving us some light. And that's because I've made these work with frame blocks as well. And when you texture a frame block, you can hit it with glowstone in order to make it emit light, which is very handy. The other thing I've done with these is made them all pickable with the wrench, which makes life a whole bunch easier. And you can see there's another block here which I've tried to mimic industrial iron, but make it just with normal iron. So this is block of iron plating, and this is a block of industrial iron. Unfortunately though, I couldn't make the connected textures work because I don't know how to do that. And these blocks have already come in ridiculously handy. Coming back up to the roof, you might notice all of these bits here are those grate blocks, because it looks more like what was actually on the picture than any of the other blocks I could find in this mod pack. There's a long way to go just to show you that. And the other type of blocks that I've always wanted are different types of colours of light blocks, because there really aren't that many light blocks in the game of various colours. So I added in all of these. These are light emitting concrete blocks, which are obviously a lot brighter than concrete, but you craft them with 4 glow squid ink sacks and concrete, like this recipe here. And then I wanted those but see-through, so I made these light emitting glass blocks, which are basically again concrete but transparent, which emit light of different colours, or at least I hope they would. And these are crafted with glow squid ink sacks and stained glass, so it's a good job I made that glow squid ink farm in the last episode. And again, these can all be picked up with the wrench, which is very handy. And again, they can all be added to frame blocks as well, and they'll emit their light while they're doing that, which is also very handy, because I've also used these all over the place in this build as well. You can see we've got some up there, and heading back upstairs again, there's a bunch more upstairs too. In fact, these lights have all got the white light concrete block on there, and in between this ceiling area there's actually 2 layers of stained glass, one at this level and one right through there at the top. And between that you can see there's those white grate blocks, and there's also a load of the white glass blocks as well, so it always gives off plenty of light. But the main reason I wanted these light blocks is because I really hoped that I could use the blue ones in order to make this thing look blue at night time. Now obviously not without shaders on, and my idea was that we could come behind these and, I don't know, chuck a bunch of these blue light blocks up here, then at night time that would give that a blue glow. It doesn't quite work like that. You see, if I throw some shaders on and drop one of these down, you would hope that it would emit a blue light, but it doesn't. It emits a white light, and no matter what I've tried, I can't get these things to actually emit different colours of light. That's not going to work. What might work, however, would be to use these framed wall boards on the outside of these and then texture these with these glass light blocks, and then you can see that gives the entire thing that sort of blue hue. And I could do that the whole way around the whole building on every single side and make it all look like it was glowing blue, but then it would glow blue during the day as well, and it would cost me an absolute fortune in all those materials, so I don't don't think that's a reasonable solution. And of course, I did consider a massive contraption that would bury itself in the ground during the day and come up at night and just be absolutely covered in these things and surround the building. But unfortunately, it would be too big that when it moved, it'd go invisible anyway, and it would probably tear the building to shreds trying to make it work. So I'm going to leave the ideas to you guys of how we're going to turn this building blue at night, because I'm all out of ideas. Now, if you want this mod pack, I am going to try and make it available publicly on CurseForge so that I can add it to this pack, but please be aware that I'm not going to be supporting it. I'm not going to update it for different versions of Minecraft, and I'm not going to make it for different mod loaders. I've made this for me, for this particular pack, and whilst I might add more things to it in the future, for now, it's just how it is. Anyway, it's time to get these layers at least as finished off as I can, which means putting in a whole bunch more walls, which means a whole bunch more white concrete, and it also means making a whole bunch of these framed bookshelves, because these, with a little bit of white concrete, need to be all over the place. So adding these walls in is pretty easy. But now I'm officially out of white concrete, so I've got to go make a whole bunch more. And I think a few thousand should do it. Oh, we've already got nearly 2,000 coming through here already, which means that washing machine and this washing machine are all both... Oh, wow, look how fast this one goes. It's very speedy. I'll have this concrete done in no time. And there we go. We now have all of the internal walls on every single one of the levels, so it must be bookcase time. The question is, how many books can we make? We've got 1,648 leather, and that means we can make quite a lot of books, but there we go, that's it. 1,718 books. So now we need to make a whole bunch of these bookshelves, and we also need to make these ones, which are blank, but they don't need any books, so that's good. And there we go. That's how many I can make. I don't know if that's going to be enough. So starting at this bottom floor then and looking at the picture, it looks like we've got basically 3 high rows of these, and above that is where my handy grates are going to come in, because apparently there's something a little bit like that running across the top. And that kind of works. If you're enjoying this video, then consider hitting that subscribe button. It only takes a second and it really helps me out. Okay, and now to save myself a few of those, let's put in some blank ones around the place as well. Just smash a few holes in this and then we can go round and replace them. And that's going to save me a whole bunch of books. There we go, that doesn't look too bad. And now what I need to do, grab myself some trapdoors, and what we're going to do in these corner areas is just have a bunch of shelves. And that way we can make the area look a little bit more full and save ourselves some bookshelves as well. And did you know that with this mod pack, you can actually make piles of books? You can put books down just like this all over the place, and you can stack them on top of each other as well at funny angles. So I think they could come in useful. And with those little corner bits there like that, that does make this room feel a whole lot more finished. So we can go up to the next layer. Hurrah! And looking at the picture for this layer, there's not a door there. In fact, the doors are offset slightly, and they're in line with this here. So we've got one there, and we've got another one there. And then there's the bookcases all the way in between these doors. Again, with that fancy grating along the top. And again, it continues pretty much into the corner, but I'm going to do the same trick again, save myself a few bookcases, and just have some more shelves in the corner. What's slightly different about this floor is that this is the first floor that actually has some bookcases just sort of out in the open like this as well, so we'll have a few of those dotted around. And another thing this floor has is seating. There's a whole bunch of seats all the way around for people to sit on and read their books, so I'm going to add a bunch of those in. And one more thing I can do to save myself a little bit of money on this leather, because my bookshelves are already running out, we're only on the second floor, and that is to copy a little bit like what there is in some of the pictures and add in some shelf areas for these, although I don't know whether that's going to work ever so well on the bottom. I'm thinking if I use a couple of those there like that, and then on bits like this we can chuck down a couple of these types of books, and that could work. Yeah, I think it will. And it adds a nice amount of variety to this as well, which is good. And I could also use some things from the supplementaries mod, like these hourglasses, to fill up some of these spaces so that we're not just wasting tons of books. I'd quite like to make these globes, but I need antique ink for that, but I don't have any. What about some statues? Yeah, I guess that could kind of work, like a history museum-y type thing on there, that'll work. And you can never say no to a nice goblet here and there. So that makes that floor look a whole bunch more finished and a whole lot more like there's a lot going on. So we've only got 3 floors to go. On the next floor, the doors are back in the middle, but there's more doors. More door? like Harry Potter? No, you're thinking of Lord of the Rings, mate. Oh. And a substantial amount of time later, that next floor is done as well, and this is all starting to come together quite nicely. But what about the hyper enchanting? What about the villagers? Where are they all gonna go? They're all gonna be out in these hallway rooms outside, out of the way, because as much as I intended for those to be a key part of this building originally, I'm actually really happy with how this is all coming together, and I kind of don't want to spoil it. Now, it would be nice if I could say, let's say, like, throw an axe onto there, it would get enchanted and it would come back again with the right enchantment on it. So maybe we could do something like inside the walls, but I think realistically this is going to be the best place for all of that stuff that's going on. On this level, I've been as absolutely sparing as possible, digging out all of my old enchanted rubbish books to basically use as many as the chiseled bookshelves as possible to save myself on the actual bookshelves, and I think that kind of works. So the top layers then, well, this one's pretty much the same as that one, but the doors are in different places. But the very top floor, well, this one's completely different. This one just has bookcases coming off the sides of the walls like this with a gap below the ceiling, and it's just got, I guess, a bunch of these coming down here pretty much all the way around wherever there isn't that. And then to cover up the end bit, we'll just use some framed wall boards on there, and that looks a whole bunch better, although it is going to cost me a lot of bookshelves. So I think I'm going to leave this floor till last and concentrate on this one. Well, like a total moron, I've been trading with this guy for ages. I keep buying these impact books off him because I thought they were the cheapest at 6 emeralds each. But it turns out this guy's got flame for 5. I've already pretty much filled the library up with impact books. Jeez. And I've also been wasting my emeralds buying a whole bunch of these bookshelves in order to turn them into books, so that then I could trade with the villagers, and it never occurred to me that I could actually use those bookshelves and take the books to make the new book. Oh, jeez. Well, anyway, it doesn't matter. I got a whole bunch more enchanted books now to go and shove back in our new library. So I didn't drop off my levels at my XP tank. Not to worry, we're back at the library, and we are just about done on the very last main floor. It's all looking pretty good, that level. It's all looking pretty good, that level, which means I only need to do this top floor, and that's just a case of putting a bunch of these in. That said, I would like to fill some of these out with a few more of these enchanted books, because it is looking a little bit dry down here. Dry? Well, empty. You know what I mean. Let's do this. The last lot then. So what, we got a 3 wide gap in between each one. That makes sense. Then we'll throw in a bunch of those, and I'm just going to do this all the way pretty much until we get to the corner, which is just about here. And then I guess we'll leave that 3 blocks, and then we'll do the same thing here like this. Now, they are a bit closer to each other on the reference picture, but I'm running out of bookshelves fast, so you can go get more from the villagers. I spent all day with those villagers. I'm not doing any more trading with those villagers. I'm sick of those villagers. I'm not doing it. No. Anyone else want to buy any paper? One last call for paper. Anyone at all? Anyone want to take my paper? No, you're all out of stock on paper. Okay, then bookshelves. Dad, I'm out of emeralds already. I only got 11. Take me spuds. You also take spuds. And you take spuds. You're all spudded out. That takes us back to paper. Okay, let's break down what I've got and see how many of the framed bookcases I can make. 41! Yay! We've got enough, so I can just throw these last few bookshelves in here. Just like that. There we go. That's all of the bookshelves now in this entire facility. I've managed to do it. I've managed to spread them thin enough that they take up the whole thing. And I think this building looks pretty wonderful. So with the internal parts of the library 100% decorated and complete, that means we can now focus on the hyper enchanting part of this, which means we've got to get biodiesel over here for heat. We've got to make hyper experience. We need the villagers over here. And I'm pretty sure you've already guessed that's not happening today. So thank you for watching. If you want to find out what happens in the next one with this library and the hyper enchanting, then you better tune in next Wednesday. For now though,